Today, we are going to talk about a substance so addictive that studies show it's worse than cocaine. I'm talking about sugar. I know, you already know sugar is bad for you, and you don't need to hear it from me. I agree. So today, I'm going to focus on the miraculous things that happen when you kick your sugar addiction. Welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast, where we provide education and inspiration to help guide you on your journey to look better, feel better, and most importantly, heal better. Hello, and welcome to the Foundational Health Podcast. I'm Dr. Kevin Schultz, and the intent of the podcast today is to help you realize you are very likely a sugar addict. Stick around if you don't believe me. And then help you understand all of the tremendous benefits to your health by beating this addiction, and to educate you on how to have a healthy relationship with more healthy forms of sugar. Be sure to stick around to the end, where I'll break down the different types of sugar and how to use them in a more safe way, and then give you tips to overcome sugar cravings and withdrawal symptoms, which are very real, as well as a 4-week plan to reduce sugar in your life. Before we jump into the meat of the show today, I want to share a recent review I received. This one comes from Alyssa. I had been miserably sick, dealing with such terrible GI, gastrointestinal issues. It was affecting every single part of my life. I was missing work. I couldn't handle riding in the car and taking trips anywhere. And I was constantly missing out on being a mom to my 2 little girls. At my worst, I was losing 5 pounds a week despite eating all the time, unable to make my commute to work without getting miserably sick, and still getting no answers from my primary care physician or the GI specialists I was seeing. It got to the point that my doctors told my husband they were concerned I had pancreatic cancer. I decided to do Dr. Kevin's 60-day gut healing protocol. This was finally the answer I was looking for. I finally have my life back. If you had told me a year ago I would be this healthy and doing this well, I never would have believed you. The knowledge I've gained through the gut healing protocol are lessons I will carry forward through the rest of my life. I'm finally not just surviving, but thriving. Thank you so much for that incredible review, Alyssa. Thank you for trusting us, and most importantly, thank you for believing in yourself. Okay, let's talk about sugar. The average American consumes 22 teaspoons of added sugar from processed foods on a daily basis, whether they know it or not. And whether they know it or not, they are highly addicted as a result of that. And the average is 22. So if you think about, like, I don't consume really any added sugar from processed foods, and that would apply to a lot of other people as well. So if you think about what high consumers take or consume on a daily basis, especially with heavy soda drinkers, sometimes it's upwards of 100 plus teaspoons of added sugar on a daily basis. And that absolutely leads to an addiction, like I said, whether somebody believes it or recognizes it or not. So let's take a little bit different focus, and let's look at 10 miraculous, amazing changes that take place in your body when you quit or dramatically reduce sugar. Number 1, your cells wake up. When you eat sugar and grains, which we'll get into a little bit more later, it breaks down into glucose in your blood, and your blood sugar spikes. When your blood sugar spikes, this alerts your pancreas to release insulin into your blood. Insulin becomes, or you can think of it as, the delivery driver. And it drives around your bloodstream, knocking on all of the cells' doors saying, hey, I've got glucose for you. And guess what? Your cells open the door and they listen. They take the glucose in and they either use it or they store it for energy. If this happens once in a while, no big deal whatsoever. But we all know that is not the case. This happens snack after snack, meal after meal, day after day, a constant onslaught of sugar. Your cells then get sick of insulin, or the delivery driver knocking on their door, and they literally quit opening the door, which is what insulin resistance is. This, of course, forces the glucose to stay in the bloodstream because now it can't get into the cell to be used for energy or to be stored. And when the glucose stays in the bloodstream, that is high blood sugar. So now the pancreas has to send out even more insulin, more delivery drivers to get to your cells to respond. But guess what? The cells do not respond. Despite the fact that there's more delivery drivers out there knocking on doors, there still is no response. That means you're now in full-blown insulin resistance, which leads to weight gain, chronic fatigue syndrome, obesity, and it becomes a direct pathway to type 2 diabetes. Here's the miraculous thing. When you cut out or even reduce the sugar, your cells start listening again within 48 hours, and your blood sugar drops, and your pancreas does not have to produce as much insulin. So, pretty miraculous. That all happens within 48 hours or at about 48 hours. And of course, the longer you stay off sugar, the better that continues to get. Number 2, your energy increases. Most people think that sugar is a necessary energy source. And I know this from talking to people. Well, without sugar, I wouldn't have any energy. Like, I absolutely need that on a daily basis. So most people think that sugar is a necessary energy source. And so the thought of cutting it out is really unthinkable. And then you combine that with the fact that they're an addict, and it becomes even more unthinkable. But within 1 to 2 weeks of cutting out sugar, your metabolism changes and you become a fat burner instead of a sugar burner. This is huge. Now you have a steady, sustained energy, which is what fat provides, as opposed to sugar, which is energy, crash, energy, crash, energy, crash. And it's an endless cycle because of that. The third thing that happens, pain disappears. That's right. Pain disappears. When you reduce sugar, you get a drop in inflammation, which leads to a drop in muscle aches, joint pain, and even acne and other skin flare-ups that can also be painful. This is not just about feeling achy, though. So it's more than feeling. Once you have gotten to the point where sugar has caused so much inflammation in your body that it's causing acne and other skin and gut issues, along with joint pain and muscle pain, it means you have a chronic inflammatory condition. Not maybe, you absolutely do at that point. That's why you're getting those symptoms. So you have a chronic inflammatory condition, and this isn't just something you feel. So it's not about feeling, it's an actual condition in your body. Immune system research has connected excessive sugar intake to things like severe inflammatory conditions, RA, rheumatoid arthritis, MS, believe it or not, multiple sclerosis. So most people think like, oh, multiple sclerosis, that's a nervous system disorder. It's a brain disorder, probably not something that people can help. Well, it's linked to sugar intake. The more sugar, the longer period of time, the increased chance of rheumatoid arthritis, multiple sclerosis, irritable bowel syndrome, and countless other inflammatory problems. Number 4, weight loss becomes easier. Every time insulin spikes, it tells your body to store sugar, and then sugar stores as fat. But it does not release this fat for energy. It stores it. So let me say that again. When your insulin spikes, it tells your body to store sugar, and sugar doesn't store as sugar. Sugar stores as fat. But your body does not release this fat for energy. So it's not releasing it on a regular basis. Again, it's storing it as fat, and it continues to store it as fat. The more sugar you eat, the more it stores as fat. It stores it, but after you quit sugar for a long enough period of time, and for a lot of people, this happens within, again, a 2 to 3 week period of time. After you quit sugar for a long enough period of time, that storage signal goes away and you're able to access that stored energy, which means your body is able to more readily get rid of fat. So I'm not suggesting it just falls off instantly, but because your metabolism changes and you're changing over the way that your body utilizes energy, you're getting rid of those fat stores more readily. Now, you combine that with increased steady energy, because that's what fat energy provides, and less aches and pains, less brain fog, and this leads to a more desire to move and exercise, and all of a sudden you're on the path to not only weight loss, but more importantly, better health. And of course, as you do all of those things, the weight loss will increase and the better health will just magnify. So pretty fantastic stuff. Number 5, mood improves and brain fog lifts. Sugar gives you a dopamine rush, but then a quick and very hard crash for most people, making you want more and more. And if you want an example of this, you really don't. I mean, if you have kids, you see it firsthand, especially, I mean, sadly, most kids do this on a regular basis, but especially if you have like a birthday party or a holiday party and kids have unlimited access to sugar. They eat a ton of sugar. They're going crazy from that dopamine rush, from that quick energy. And then they crash so hard, like they just pass out in the middle of the floor at times. So that is a perfect example of what's happening and what is happening inside their little bodies, which is not a funny thing. It's a scary thing, is a massive dopamine rush, massive sugar high, and then a hard crash where the body just wants to shut down. And of course, with an adult, when you're not doing it to that level, it leads you to wanting and needing more sugar. You've got to get that rush again. You've got to get that energy again. And it's an endless addictive cycle. Sugar also depletes B vitamins, which is absolutely crucial for brain function. When B vitamin levels drop, your thinking and memory get worse and you become more irritable. Combine this drop in B vitamins with chronic inflammation, and you have the recipe for depression and anxiety. When you quit sugar, however, your B vitamins are able to increase. And of course, if you combine this with high quality supplements or high quality real whole food, your inflammation also will drop at the same time, along with a more of an increase of the B vitamins. And as a result, your gut becomes healthier. You can produce proper amounts and ratios of brain chemicals, because that's where they come from, your gut, which is why quitting sugar not only lifts your mood and reduces brain fog, but also improves memory. It helps people overcome things like depression and anxiety. Number 6, your taste buds come alive. So this one's pretty fun and absolutely true. Tons of science on this and everything else that I'm mentioning, by the way. Your taste buds come alive. The more sugar you eat, your taste buds become desensitized. And the more desensitized they become, the more sweetness you need to satisfy your taste cravings. This leads to the taste buds that detect things like salty, savory, sour, and bitter to almost get turned off entirely, but they at least get dampened. When you quit sugar, however, for 2 to 3 weeks, your taste buds return, and all of a sudden, things you didn't think were sweet all of a sudden become like sugar. An apple, which often tastes blah to a sugar addict, will start to taste like candy after 3 weeks of kicking the sugar habit. This is why in my family, we refer to fruit as God's candy. Carrots and other vegetables become more flavorful, and equally important, all of a sudden, those desserts and other things that you used to love, when you eat them now after reducing sugar for a couple of weeks, for a cheat meal, for example, they taste way too sweet. And you also notice they taste fake, because they are. That's why. And I hear this from people all of the time, like, oh my gosh, I used to love cheesecake, or I used to love Reese's peanut butter cups, and now when I eat them, I can't stand them. They make my stomach upset. They're so incredibly sweet. I can literally taste the fakiness in there. I hear this all of the time, but you do not recognize those things unless you kick the sugar habit in the first place. And the reason, by the way, that your stomach gets upset now is because your body is now healthier and it is rejecting the poison that you're putting in there. Part of our mission at Foundational Health is researching and partnering with wellness products that we trust. Our one-stop health shop is loaded with brands that we not only have extensively researched, but also trust and use ourselves. You can find everything from low EMF, red light therapy devices, grounding mats and sheets, non-toxic mattresses, saunas that help you detox faster without toxifying you, the best water and air filtration systems on the market, high-quality supplements and foods, exercise and fitness products, our favorite books, and so much more. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Health Shop, and you'll find the links to countless products that you can not only trust, but also many that we have discounts set up just for you. Now let's get back to the podcast. So let's review the first 6 miraculous things that happen before moving on to the last 4. Quitting sugar causes muscle and joint pain to disappear, skin issues to go away, weight loss becomes easier, your mood improves, brain fog lifts, depression and anxiety improve, and your taste buds come alive. Pretty amazing. But for those of you that are still saying, no way, I'm not giving up my sugar, and I hear this all the time, there is more. So these last 4 are really incredible and just shows how amazing the body is and how if you do more good things for the body and less bad things, the body is designed to heal. Number 7, your liver gets a chance to heal. Sugar, if you break it down, is sucrose. So that's really what we're talking about here. And then sucrose is 2 different molecules. There's glucose and there's fructose. Glucose gets used by all of your cells. Fructose, however, goes straight into the liver. And if there is too much fructose, your liver starts converting it to fat. That's fatty liver disease. You get fat, and most people have heard of fatty liver disease, but they don't know what it is. It literally means that your liver now has fat in and around the liver. So the liver inside becomes fat, and growing around the outside of the liver is fat as well. And that is a very, very bad thing that you do not want. What is the primary cause of it? It is sugar, without a doubt. Our liver is incredibly important. The liver is designed to filter toxins. It produces bile to break down fats. It regulates hormones, and it produces about 80% of the cholesterol in our body. And if you're thinking, oh my gosh, we don't want cholesterol production, cholesterol is a bad thing, listen to my very next podcast with Dr. Jack Wolfson, who's a cardiologist, and he will explain to you that cholesterol is absolutely amazing and necessary when it is in a healthy proportion and ratios in the body. But when your liver is fatty, which it is if you're a sugar addict, again, none of those functions work the same. None of those functions work properly. The amazing thing about the liver is that it is incredibly resilient, more than any other part of the body. In fact, you can cut out 75% of the liver and it can regrow to full size. It's the only part of our body that can actually do that. A study on children with fatty liver disease, and this is just so incredibly sad to me that we're talking about children with fatty liver disease. And it's actually become incredibly, incredibly common for one reason. And hopefully you've already figured that out. Sugar. Sugar causes fatty liver disease. Kids get massive, massive overdoses of sugar every single day from processed foods. So this doesn't mean you're giving them candy bars and you're giving them suckers and you're giving them soda. Some people are, but it can also mean you're just eating processed foods, processed cereals and processed breads and all the other processed stuff that is loaded with sugar. And it's loaded with sugar because they know it's addictive, and they want it to be addictive because they know you're going to buy more of their product. Here's the awesome thing about this. This study on these children with fatty liver disease showed that by cutting out sugar for 9 days only, reduced the fat in and around the liver by about 50%. In 9 days. That is incredibly miraculous. And the reason it's miraculous is because you're designed by God to heal. Your liver can heal. It just needs you to stop poisoning it. And please stop poisoning your children's liver and your grandchildren's liver. It's not a treat, it is poison. A treat is a piece of fruit, God's candy, which is sugar designed to heal and feed gut bacteria, not the ultra processed foods. And I'm not trying to make anybody feel horrible here. I'm not saying don't ever do that. But I'm saying quit looking at it as a treat when that treat happens every single day, day after day, meal after meal, snack after snack. It should be an occasional treat, if you want to call it that, for holidays, for a birthday party where your body can handle it. But when it's the daily onslaught, your body can't handle it. And that is why we're seeing fatty liver disease show up way too often in children, and of course, massive amounts of it with adults. Number 8, gut and immune system balance. 70% of your immune cells live in the gut, and sugar destroys your gut, which then destroys your immune system. Your gut is literally your body's first line of defense against disease, which is why I always recommend for someone trying to heal, start with the gut. Even if you don't have gut problems, if you're trying to heal from something, start with the gut. Do that 60-day gut healing protocol that I talked about with Alyssa in the beginning. That is what her testimonial is based on, is doing that 60-day protocol. You have trillions of bacteria that live in your gut, good ones and bad ones. The good ones keep your immune system strong, produces most of your brain chemicals, and it helps keep them in balance. They produce vitamins, properly digest food, and keep you healthy. The bad ones, bacteria that is, drive inflammation and make you sick and unhealthy mentally and physically. And then sugar feeds these bad bacteria and causes them to multiply and outnumber the good bacteria, which then throws your entire body out of balance. This then damages your gut lining because of the massive amount of inflammation, and that causes the gut to become leaky, which allows undigested food particles, bad bacteria, and toxins to leak directly into your bloodstream. That then causes diarrhea and constipation. It makes you feel bloated, and it makes you very susceptible to infections. A leaky gut with undigested food particles, bad bacteria, and toxins leaking directly into your bloodstream, if you didn't already figure this out, is a really, really bad thing. And it happens way too often because of an onslaught of sugar. When you quit sugar, however, and introduce supplements like spore-based probiotics, as well as a whole food diet and probiotic-rich foods like raw dairy and kefir and raw yogurt, not raw yogurt, but fermented dairy like yogurt, as well as things like kimchi and sauerkraut, that allows the good bacteria to flourish. Your gut lining then heals, your immune system improves, your skin health improves, your brain improves, and the constant bloating and digestive issues absolutely will go away. Number 9, your skin becomes glowing. We've all seen people that like, oh my gosh, your skin looks so healthy. It looks like it's glowing. And that's a rarity, which is why people mention it when they see it. When sugar enters your bloodstream, it attaches to proteins and it causes a process called glycation, which is oxidation. And if you don't know what oxidation is, it's a bad thing. Oxidation is, it literally, people equate it to your body rusting on the inside. When your body is rusting on the inside, this creates AGEs, which stand for Advanced Glycation End Product, which is very fitting, AGE, age, since it literally increases aging of the skin, which you can see, but it also, something you can't see, it ages the entire body from the inside, and then that starts to show up on the outside, which is why you see it in your skin. Your skin is made up of 2 key proteins. You have collagen and you have elastin. Collagen helps keep the skin firm. Most people are aware of that. Elastin, just like it sounds, is elastic or bouncy, hence the name. AGEs attack both of these proteins, making your skin stiff and dry and brittle, which then leads to deeper wrinkles, saggy skin, dull instead of shiny, glowing complexion, and also causes acne and other skin flare-ups. When you quit poisoning your skin with sugar, you produce less AGEs and your collagen fibers can start to repair and your texture becomes smoother and your natural glow that we were born with and should have for life, that natural glow can now return. And a little tip here when we're talking about collagen, because that is a really, really big thing in the natural health world and the supplement world. You will never, ever beat whole food collagen. Things like pasture-raised eggs and wild-caught Alaskan sockeye salmon and other types of wild-caught fish. 100% grass-fed beef, bone broth, all of those things contain collagen that is so much better than a processed collagen supplement. That being said, if you do prefer collagen supplements, which I know a lot of people do, especially if they're not eating enough of those foods, then I'm a huge fan of a collagen supplement like Ancient Nutrition produces. And you can get that on our website through the full script link. Here's the bigger concern. AGEs don't just affect your skin. High levels of AGEs that are created from eating excess sugar are linked to heart disease, Alzheimer's, and cancer. Quitting sugar is the cheapest and most effective anti-aging treatment there is. Last but certainly not least, number 10, lower the risk of chronic disease. Those things that I just mentioned, heart disease and Alzheimer's and cancer. Most of the issue with chronic disease and everything else that we talked about so far comes down to fructose. And before you start blaming fruit, I promise you fruit is not the problem, at least for about 99.99% of the population. Sadly, like so many influencers on social media and sometimes medical doctors who have become new influencers, and I shouldn't just say medical doctors, other doctors that don't really dive into this and don't understand it, they just see a study that shows fructose is the problem. Well, fruit has fructose. So they start bashing fruit and they start recommending like, oh, your problem is you're eating too many bananas and you need to cut out berries. And that is just not the problem. That is a lack of understanding of what processed fructose is compared to fructose in fruit. So I promise you, fruit is not the problem. It's the fructose that comes from high fructose corn syrup and other forms of fructose found in ultra-processed foods. And adults and children get about 70% of their daily calories from ultra-processed food, which is a massive, massive amount. So this processed food form of fructose, which is not natural, leads to an increase in triglycerides, which then strains the liver and the pancreas. And when then you lower sugar intake, this is the good part, when you lower sugar intake, your triglycerides come down. In fact, that's the number one thing that I recommend to people is if you have high triglycerides, which is absolutely a problem for a lot of people, the only way you're going to get that down and the most effective way is by addressing the cause. And the cause is not cholesterol in your diet. I will say that over and over and over again. It is not. There is zero science behind that. It is a lie. The cause of high triglycerides is sugar and too much ultra-processed food sugar. So when you lower that sugar intake, your triglycerides come down, your blood pressure and blood sugar start to stabilize, and your body can heal because of all of that. There are no health benefits from added processed sugar. None. And I hope that goes without saying, but I know it doesn't for so many people because they really do believe our body needs this glucose. Our body needs it for energy. And that is absolutely true from vegetables and fruits and the stuff that you get from high quality, real food. It does not get any health benefit in any way, shape, or form from processed sugars. So we're going to look at sugar substitutes next, but first, let's quickly talk about grains. We can't talk about sugar without grains. Things like processed breads, cereals, and pastas are the same. They are the same as eating sugar, literally. Your body reacts to these processed grains no different than taking a teaspoon of sugar and swallowing it. And I know that may sound crazy, but it is absolutely true. And that is because they are so highly processed that it instantly converts the grain to a sugar and it spikes your blood sugar. And if you don't believe me, get a continuous glucose monitor. Talk to somebody who's a diabetic and wears a continuous glucose monitor and ask them what happens when they eat a whole wheat bagel or a whole wheat piece of bread. And what they see is often it spikes blood sugar more than eating a piece of candy. It is nasty, nasty stuff. And this is where the lie comes in from all of the food manufacturers, like I talked about with one of my recent podcasts on ultra-processed food and labeling and marketing lies, that this grain is necessary. Like it is part of a healthy diet, and Cheerios are heart healthy. I mean, that's an absolute joke. These things have no benefit to your body whatsoever, and they are not necessary carbs. Vegetables and fruits are necessary carbs. And then the things that you still get carbohydrates in other foods. There are natural sugars in raw dairy, for example, and yogurt and kefir. And there's sugar in processed, a good process, by the way, good processed fermented foods like kimchi and sauerkraut. So many people I talk to tell me they've really focused on cutting out sugar and they look for it on ingredient labels, which is great. But when we do a little deeper dive into what they are eating, I often find they are processed carboholics, which is the same as a sugar addict. So if you're serious about cutting out sugar, that also means cutting out processed grains as well. All right, let's dive into sugar substitutes. Many sugar substitutes aren't actually alternatives to sugar. They're just sugar masquerading under a different name. High fructose corn syrup, for example. So here's the verdict on high fructose corn syrup. It's bad news. It's a liquid form of refined sugar that makes us fat and sick. I think everybody knows that one by now, so I'm not going to spend any more time on that. Agave syrup, however, is often marketed as a healthy sugar substitute. The reality is it is so highly processed by the time it's put into your food. So the verdict on agave syrup is that substituting table sugar with agave syrup is like substituting a Coke for a Pepsi. It's not any better, and it might even be worse. Honey. Honey is my personal favorite for many reasons, as long as it's raw. So raw honey contains compounds like bee pollen, royal jelly, propolis that can absolutely boost your immune function and reduce allergies, especially if it's local raw honey. Honey also contains things called flavonoids with potent antioxidant effects. The flavonoids can help with things like wound healing and blood glucose regulation. So the verdict on honey is this: honey, when it's raw, has health benefits, but it is absolutely still a sugar. It doesn't make it a health food in the sense that it's free reign on honey and you can use unlimited amounts and still be healthy. You still need to use it wisely and sparingly, such as before or after a workout, or in my opinion, this is where you can have a treat, and it actually can be a treat with a small amount of raw honey. Molasses. Molasses is a thick brown syrup made by boiling down cane sugar. It's simply a reduced form of sugar. It's high in iron, it's high in potassium, manganese, magnesium, and copper, all of which are essential minerals for your heart, your bones, and your immune health. Manganese, for example, increases your blood vessels' dilation. So it helps your blood vessels stay dilated to support healthy blood pressure. So those are all good things, but that doesn't, again, mean free reign on molasses. Small amounts. So really the verdict on molasses is that it contains some really great minerals, but if you're avoiding sugar, it's still just not a great choice and certainly not something that you want to look for as a healthy addition to your diet. Coconut sugar, really popular one, especially for baking. So the pros and cons of coconut sugar, which by the way is made from coconut sap. The pros are that it contains antioxidants, zinc, iron, calcium, potassium, and it contains a prebiotic fiber called inulin, which lowers blood sugar more slowly. So it can help to regulate blood sugar, and then it can feed good gut bacteria and improve digestion. Of course, there's always pros and cons. The cons are that it contains a load of fructose, a really high amount of fructose, which, if you remember, is the fat-forming sugar that we covered earlier. So the verdict on coconut sugar is it's just sugar with a few extra nutrients. So still not great, not something that you should look to add. Maple syrup. Maple syrup happens to be my second favorite. First place, again, was honey. Most people think of maple syrup as an essential topping for pancakes and waffles. They don't think of it as a vehicle for antioxidants and something called oligosaccharides. You don't have to remember that. But maple syrup is high in both of these. So it actually has more antioxidant force than honey, which is shocking to most people. Well, it's oligosaccharides, just a compound sugar molecule, may improve blood sugar regulation. Good stuff, but despite these beneficial properties, maple syrup, just like all the rest, is still sugar. So the verdict on maple syrup is that it is healthier than table sugar, but it should be used sparingly still. And then when sourcing maple syrup, and this is what my family does when my wife bakes healthier options, she uses honey or maple syrup. And when sourcing maple syrup, always look for local and ideally get the darker, which is higher in minerals. And typically this is going to be labeled as grade B. There are now some grade A that are darker, but grade B is always going to be your best bet for higher levels of minerals, which is why it's darker. Artificial sweeteners. So these are things like sucralose, aspartame, and saccharin. I am not a fan of these lab synthesized sweeteners for so many reasons. So here's just one of those reasons. There is evidence that consuming artificial sweeteners during pregnancy negatively impacts the baby's body composition and increases the odds of that baby having a sweet tooth. So they start life out as a sugar addict because of these sugar alternatives, these artificial lab synthesized sweeteners. So I don't recommend them for pregnant or nursing women for sure, but I certainly don't recommend them for anybody. And here's why I don't recommend them for anybody. Recent research has raised additional concerns about artificial sweeteners. It shows that they alter gut microbiome, which means it destroys the good bacteria, feeds the bad bacteria, just like other sugar does. It also negatively affects how your body handles glucose, and there's a ton of others. So the verdict is I recommend avoiding artificial sweeteners literally at all costs. I personally think they're poison, but even if you don't agree that they're poison, and I had somebody reach out to me recently that was arguing the polar opposite, saying like, I don't believe that at all, and I think they're a great addition. So if that is you, if you believe that they're not poison and you don't think that they're the worst thing in the world like I do, there are certainly still better options out there without a doubt. Honey, maple syrup, things that have been around forever. Those are God's sweeteners, in addition to things like fruit, which is God's candy. To end with these sugar alternatives, let's take a look at low-carb sugar substitutes that are not artificial like the ones that we just covered. And by the way, individual responses to these sweeteners can vary quite a bit, so it's worth experimenting because everybody responds differently. So you have to kind of experiment with it to find out what works best for your body, for your taste preferences. Some of these will cause gut disruption for people. So the most popular one is stevia. Stevia is extracted from the leaves of the stevia plant. Stevia extract doesn't raise blood sugar, but it has powerful antioxidant properties also at the same time. And this is why it's so popular. It is 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar. That is a massive amount. So sugar is sweet. This is 200 to 300 times sweeter than sugar. So ultimately, the verdict on stevia is this. Stevia can be a really good alternative, but the problem with it is that most ultra-processed foods and supplements aren't using a whole stevia leaf. And the reason they're not is because the whole stevia leaf has a bad aftertaste. At least that's one of the reasons. So instead, they use a processed form of a stevia leaf extract with less aftertaste. And anytime you're going to have a processed form of something, it's certainly not going to be as good. It's certainly going to not be as beneficial. So in the ideal world, you're looking for green leaf stevia, which is the least processed form of stevia, to make sure you're getting the real deal. And that's what I recommend for the people that don't mind that bitter aftertaste and that like to add something to their coffee or their baked goods. You definitely want to look for green leaf stevia. Ultimately, stevia now is everywhere, including many supplements. And overall, I'm a fan of this, and I personally don't try to avoid it in food or supplements. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't or that that's the perfect decision. And a lot of this, again, comes down to how it varies from person to person. And if it causes gut upset, obviously it's something that you're going to want to avoid. But I personally don't try to avoid it in food because I don't eat a lot of processed food in the first place, so I don't really have to look for it. So if it's there, no big deal. But I also personally don't try to avoid it in supplements. But it surely wouldn't be something that I would choose to sweeten food with myself. I don't like the aftertaste, for one, but I also, as I've already mentioned, strongly prefer choosing things like raw honey or pure grade B maple syrup. Monk fruit. Similar to stevia, monk fruit extract is 250 times sweeter than sugar. It contains 0 calories, which is why it's so popular now, and it's powered by many different antioxidant compounds. So the verdict on monk fruit is that it's fairly new on the scene. It's definitely gaining a lot of traction in the supplement world and in the food world, and overall, it is a great alternative sweetener and so much better than sugar. And then also, for most people, it doesn't have a nasty aftertaste like stevia can at times. And then there's something that's less popular but gaining popularity called allulose. So last but not least, we have allulose. Of all of the low-carb sweeteners, allulose is probably the most similar to sugar in both taste and in texture, and it even browns when you bake it. So it's found in things like figs naturally. It's found in jackfruit. Allulose is technically a sugar, but it's not metabolized like sugar. Most of it gets extracted and excreted through the urine, which is why it's non-caloric. So it just passes through the digestive system, gets excreted through the urine. And then allulose is, as I mentioned, it's fairly new. It's only been on the market really, at least in commercial products, since 2012. Most people do tolerate it very well, but similar to stevia, some people do get some digestive upset from it, which is very rare with monk fruit. So the verdict on allulose, if you're looking to replace sugar in recipes or other things, using allulose is a pretty decent way to accomplish that goal, but I still recommend raw honey or grade B local maple syrup. I've said that so many times, hopefully it's sinking in. Sugar alcohols, the last sugar alternative that we're going to talk about. So these last two, which are called sugar alcohols, which, by the way, are neither sugar nor alcohol, they are carbs that aren't digested or metabolized, which is similar to fiber. Sugar alcohols primarily have a downside that is similar to what we talked about with stevia and some people with allulose, which is the potential to upset your stomach. The potential here is much greater than it is with stevia or allulose. So for a lot of people, when they eat these sugar alcohols, when they consume them in food rather, it causes nausea, diarrhea, gas, and tremendous amounts of bloating. So erythritol is the first of these sugar alcohols. So that is a sugar alcohol that is produced by yeast fermentation. It's about 70% as sweet as sugar. And then it has a kind of like a cooling aftertaste, people describe it as. And the glycemic index is 0. So when you consume erythritol, about 90%, similar to what we talked about earlier, is excreted through the urine. And that's why it does not affect blood sugar or insulin levels. This is why it makes it keto friendly. So a lot of keto approved, keto friendly products will have sugar alcohols in them for that reason, because no caloric impact, doesn't affect blood sugar. But, and this is a really big but, recent research has shown it likely is not heart healthy. So there's more and more research coming out saying like this is not a good thing, which makes sense when it causes that much stomach upset for so many people. So it's likely not heart healthy at all. The verdict, it's probably just best to consume less or no erythritol whatsoever, in my opinion, and at least wait for more data on this. The more popular, I think it's more popular at least, is xylitol. So xylitol is another sugar alcohol. And like erythritol, xylitol is a sugar alcohol that has some cons. So the cons are that it has a glycemic index of 13, and then because of that, it's not as popular with keto recipes because it does affect blood sugar a little bit. And some people do tend to get digestive upset from it. Certainly nowhere near as much as they do from erythritol and some of the other things, but they do get some digestive upset with xylitol. On the positive end, xylitol hasn't been linked to any cardiovascular problems, and it's pretty well studied. And it's also, there's a ton of research on the benefits on improving oral health, which is why you'll see it in a lot of gums as well as lozenges or breath mints, those types of things. So ultimately, the verdict when it comes to xylitol is if your gut tolerates xylitol well, it's a much healthier option than sugar in general, especially the ultra-processed food sugar, and has proven benefits for your mouth without a doubt. So sugar substitutes recommended by goals. The best for keto, low carb, and baking are things like stevia, monk fruit, and allulose. All of these are zero carb, zero glycemic impact. So stevia, monk fruit, allulose, if you're going for that ketogenic diet. Zero glycemic impact sweeteners that do not interfere with ketosis, which is the whole purpose and point of a ketogenic diet, of course, getting into that fat burning stage. The best ones for baking, in my opinion, and you're going to get different opinions on this, just going back to the same thing I already said, raw honey, grade B maple syrup, without a doubt my family's favorites. And in my opinion, because they are absolutely natural, unprocessed, that is going to always be your best option. But in addition to those two, monk fruit is a good option. Stevia, making sure it's whole leaf, which again is going to be bitter, but whole leaf stevia is a good option if you can stand that bitter taste. Allulose, which is the most similar to sugar, as I mentioned, in both taste and texture, and also browns like sugar. That makes it pretty ideal for baked goods for a lot of people. Nutridyne is my number one choice for the vast majority of my family supplements. I'm a huge fan of nearly everyone taking what I call the foundational 4 supplements: a multivitamin, a spore-based probiotic, omega-3 fish oil, and vitamin D3 with K2. The large majority of people are deficient in many of these nutrients, and they are the building blocks to gut health, immune system strength, brain health, heart health, and every other aspect of your health. Don't fall into the trap of chasing symptoms with supplements, and instead start to rebuild your health with the foundational 4. We partnered with Nutridyne so that you can save 15% on every order, and not just with the foundational 4, but all of your other supplements as well. Go to foundationalhealth365.com, click on Shop Brands, and then Nutridyne, set up your account, and you're all set to automatically get 15% off all orders. Now let's get back to the Foundational Health Podcast. All right, let's shift gears here and move into this is a big deal. And when I was putting this podcast together, I was going to try to make it short and sweet, honestly. And then I realized like there's just so many layers here, and it would be pretty ridiculous for me to tell people like, hey, just quit sugar and here's the ideal alternatives as you quit sugar without talking about common symptoms caused by sugar withdrawal. So here are those common symptoms that people will experience with sugar withdrawal: headaches, bloating, nausea, muscle aches, diarrhea, fatigue, hunger, anxiety, depression, cravings, and body chills. So none of that sounds very fun, does it? So let's take a look at 6 tips to reduce sugar cravings. And by the way, all of those things that I just mentioned, they're clearly not long term. All of those things I probably mentioned before when we talked about what sugar causes, and those are long term. Those are lifelong with the depression and the anxiety and the stuff. If you still stay on that sugar roller coaster and sugar addiction, all of the things that I mentioned as side effects to reducing or cutting out sugar are short-term side effects as your body regulates and gets healthier. So I realize, again, it doesn't sound very fun, but it's very important to know we're talking very short term, and most people overcome those within a couple of weeks. Nonetheless, let's look at 6 tips to reduce sugar cravings. Number 1, increase your fiber intake. Healthy, high-fiber foods include fruits, God sugar, vegetables, nuts, and seeds, and then remember to drink more water if you're upping your fiber, because when you up your fiber intake, a lot of people, when they're not used to that, will get constipation from that. So as you're upping your fiber, up your water, which is also a benefit. And then this is going to keep you feeling full and satisfied. It keeps your blood sugar steady, and then that will all in turn minimize the side effects of withdrawal. So don't take these tips lightly. This is huge because these side effects are the reason that most people quit. They have all of these great intentions, and I'm dealing with a lot of people right now that are going through detoxes at the beginning of the year and sugar detoxes and cutting it out entirely. And so many people fail because they give in to the side effects, whether it's hunger or energy crashes. So these side effects can minimize or sometimes eliminate those. So again, that's going to keep you full and it's going to keep you satisfied. It keeps your blood sugar steady, and that will minimize the side effects of the sugar withdrawal. Keeping blood sugar levels steady, preventing a drop in sugar levels, and sidestepping some of these negative effects is a huge, huge thing. So don't overlook any of them. Number 2, eat more protein. Protein is great for reducing hunger and sugar cravings. Not only does a high protein diet cut levels of ghrelin, the hunger hormone, but it also helps maintain normal blood sugar levels to prevent several sugar withdrawal symptoms. So good sources of protein include grass-fed beef, wild-caught Alaskan sockeye salmon, organic, local, pasture-raised eggs. You can also keep a few high-protein snacks on hand, just like I do for when sugar cravings strike. I prefer hard-boiled eggs and cold burger patties. These are my protein bars. And just to reiterate there, when I say just like I do, I mean keep those on hand. I don't keep them on hand because of sugar cravings, because I don't have sugar cravings, because I've been off sugar and processed foods for a very long period of time. And as a result, cravings have been gone for decades. So those are my preferences. Those are my protein bars. And the reason that I don't go to a regular protein bar like most people is because, guess what? They're loaded with sugar often, or they're loaded with those sugar alcohols if they don't have sugar in them. Either way, something I want to avoid. Number 3, stay hydrated. How many times have you felt your stomach rumbling only to drink a glass of water and then have it disappear? Almost everybody has experienced that. And thirst is often confused with hunger. And sometimes all it takes is drinking a bit of water, staying hydrated, to stop craving. So you can stop constipation, you can stop cravings, and so many other things just by staying hydrated. Number 4, pack in some probiotics. So eating plenty of probiotic-rich foods, which we've already talked about, helps increase the beneficial bacteria in your gut. So not only does this have far-reaching effects in terms of digestive health and immunity, but there's quite a bit of research that has even found that it could support healthy blood sugar levels and support a healthy appetite. Number 5, heart-healthy fats. Fat, much like protein and fiber, can promote that feeling of satiety. So you're feeling full, you're feeling satisfied, and it at the same time can ward off sugar cravings. And this is because fat is digested very slowly, so it keeps you feeling fuller for longer. That's a good thing. Of course, this doesn't mean you should load up on the greasy burgers and fries to reduce your sugar cravings. Instead, opt for healthy fats from things like avocados, soaked in dehydrated nuts and seeds, or if you're not taking it to that level, at least getting raw, organic nuts and seeds. And then, of course, all of the healthy proteins that I've mentioned also contain healthy fats. Number 6, satisfy your sweet tooth without sugar. Just because you're giving up extra sugar doesn't mean you have to give up all of the sweet things forever. In fact, there are plenty of easy ways to satisfy your sweet tooth without piling on added sugar by the teaspoon after teaspoon. Fruit, as we've already talked about, for example, contains natural sugars, but it also contains loads of vitamins, loads of minerals, and fiber, and that is the key with fruit. All of these things make it a much healthier choice. So we talked about fructose, which is what fruit is as far as the sugar content goes. But here is the key. When you're eating fructose from those ultra-processed foods, it doesn't have the natural fiber in it. Even if they're adding fiber, it is not the same, I promise you. It doesn't have the natural fiber in it like fruit does, designed by God. And as a result of that, when you're consuming fructose from fruit, guess what happens? Your body uses what it needs, and then the other stuff attaches to the fiber, and you eliminate it through bowel movements. That's why you're always going to be better off with whole food, because your body knows what to do with it because it's whole, real, natural. When sugar withdrawal symptoms strike, it can still be challenging. So all of these things that I mentioned can mitigate that, but it can still be challenging to continue cutting out sugar, or even if you know all of the benefits of it and you're trying to mitigate the withdrawals, some people are still going to get them depending on their level of addiction and the amount of sugar that they consume. So let's talk about 4 things you can do to help deal with the sugar withdrawal, if you're still getting it, rather, even after incorporating all the things that we've already talked about. Number 1, stay motivated. Make a list of the reasons why you decided to cut out sugar in the first place. Don't lose sight of that. Keep it close by you. So, I mean, if you're keeping it close by and you're constantly reminding yourself, you're going to continue to go strong when the cravings hit or when your symptoms worsen. And then listen to this podcast again and again, as many times as you need to reiterate, to re-motivate yourself. This is why I'm doing this. Don't give in to the cravings. And if you stay motivated, you have less chance of giving in to those cravings. And then plan out your meals and your snacks. So if you start your week knowing what you're going to eat, it makes it that much easier. That's what you can use your weekends for, or whatever days it is you have off of work. It makes it much easier to stay on track, plus even harder to stray toward the candy machine or the candy drawer at work, which you shouldn't have in the first place, by the way. And then never leave home without your cooler. Third one, clean out your kitchen. If you get rid of the junk food you may be holding on to in the first place, and then instead fill your fridge with healthy foods, your fridge, your pantry, your cabinets with healthy foods, but mainly your fridge, because it's going to contain things like fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, good healthy sources of proteins and fats. It's going to be that much easier to ignore the sugar cravings and enjoy a healthy snack instead. Fourth one, stay hydrated. So we've already mentioned that one a couple of times. Can't mention it enough, though. Absolutely huge. Stay hydrated. And for some people, that alone can mitigate many of the effects of sugar withdrawal. So let's talk about a 4-week plan to wean off of sugar. So while some people prefer to cut it out cold turkey, and if you can, fantastic. But what some people choose to do that and can do it, making changes step by step and slowly reducing your intake of sugar can also be very effective and is very necessary for some people. So here's a plan that can help you significantly cut down on your added sugar intake in just 1 month. So this is a 4-week plan. Week 1. Start using things like stevia, raw honey, or the other natural sweeteners that we talked about. Use that in your morning cup of coffee if that's something you do, or wherever else you would use refined sugar. My wife and I, when my wife drinks coffee daily, I drink it occasionally, less often, but we prefer Nutridyne's espresso flavored fruits and greens. That's our sweetener. It gives it that espresso sweetened flavor, and we absolutely love it. That has stevia in it. And so that is a much better option. Plus, you're getting all kinds of other benefits from doing that. Week 2, eliminate sugar-sweetened beverages from your diet. So this is the second step. So that includes things like soda, juice, and by the way, fruit juice is not healthy because there is no fiber. Fruit punches, lemonades, alternatives here. You can use Element, my favorite electrolyte. Has amazing flavors that can give your water flavor and not make you crave that soda, the juice, whatever it is your go-to sweetened beverage. And then also Nutridyne's fruits and greens. In addition to the espresso that I mentioned, they have countless flavors. Some of them like pink lemonade and berry and kids fruit punch, huge favorites among adults as well. Week 3, start swapping out your sweets, such as the candies and desserts, for things like fruits and nuts and seeds for snacks. So we do something called a magic spoon in our house, and we've kind of gotten away from this recently, so we're going to reincorporate it. But a magic spoon is a fun little treat sweet. So what we do is a little bit of honey on there, a little bit of sea salt, and then we put on things like raisins and almonds and cashews and pumpkin seeds and sunflower seeds. And then the kids and my wife and I eat that, and it is absolutely magical, hence the name Magic Spoon. So start swapping out the sweets and look for alternatives that are still fun, that still taste amazing, but actually health promoting instead of making your health worse. Week 4, begin trading in processed foods like frozen dinners and fast food and other convenience items for whole foods like fruits and vegetables and other things that are going to lead to better health, like nuts and seeds and all of the proteins and the fats that we've already talked about. So really, through all of this, there is one takeaway that is so important. And this comes from 26 years of working directly with people and helping them try to kick the sugar habit, which is a really, really big deal. Here's the takeaway. Cutting out sugar is not a punishment. It's a reward. Change your mindset. Change the verbiage that you use. Don't look at it as a punishment because it's not. It is absolutely a reward. And I promise your body will reward you by looking better, feeling better, and absolutely healing better. All of the things that we talked about today. That's what it comes down to. You're going to look better, feel better, and heal better. So focus on progression, not perfection. So if you're going cold turkey and you slip up, well, don't beat yourself up. Just focus on, again, progression, not perfection. If you're following that 4-week plan, that's what that's all about. Progression, not perfection. Start small. And if you aren't ready to cut it out entirely, take it in steps. I promise you'll see changes and likely more and different than I even mentioned today. But guess what? If you don't try it, you'll never know. I pray you decide to give it a try because you are a leader. Lead by example. If you enjoyed today's podcast and found it beneficial, I want you to think about who needs to hear this message. Little hint, it's everybody. Be a leader for them. Drop them a text and tell them to check out the Foundational Health Podcast with Dr. Kevin Schultz, episode number 41. 10 miraculous things that happen when you quit sugar. Until next time, make health your hobby. Thank you for listening to the Foundational Health Podcast. As always, if you would like to learn more about making health your hobby, visit our website at foundationalhealth365.com and follow me on Facebook at Kevin Schultz, DC, Foundational Health.